This is developing Yuerchenko vault. We're kind of going to start at the beginning. It's always a good place to start, I guess. With the more advanced skills, and I think Kate said it earlier, the more advanced skill, the more important the basic. And you can't, it's almost like you can't get basic enough with some of these skills. When I go into a lot of gyms and they're asking me, hey, can you fix this vault? Can you do this? Where, this kid's doing a pipe, we want it to get to layout, we want it to get to a full. Very rarely am I working on the layout and the full part. I probably will spend 90% of my time working on the round up. There are a couple good rules. Bad run, bad ball. Bad round off, bad ball. I think as coaches, we spend about 80% of our time working on the last 10% of the ball. We think, what makes Michaela Maroney's ball go so high? And you say, well, it's because she pops, it's because she snaps, she does all this. No, that chick can run. Right? She has a very, very efficient round-up. Just like her coach, just like Archer did. But also going back to her developmental coach, Howie, watching what he did with her when she was younger. It was always about the run and the round-up. So that's where we're going to start. It takes about 18 months to 2 years to teach a kid a Yuerchenko, to introduce a Yuerchenko, from the time you introduce it until the time the kid owns it. It takes about 18 months to 2 years of real training to do that. So there's nothing you can do to shorten that process. So you have to go back and start laying the base for this ball pretty early. Here are the questions that I typically get on Yuerchenko vaulting. At what level or age do I start working round-off entry balls? And that answer is as soon as the kid can do a cartwheel. Reality is, as soon as she can do a cartwheel, I throw a carpet square out there on the floor and say, do a cartwheel onto the carpet square. As soon as they can do a round-off, honey, do a round-off onto that carpet square. They're starting to see a target. They're starting to see the process of this. So, there's really no reason to not. There is a lot of fear involved in the Yuerchenko vault. I was a national vault champion back in the 80s, so I'm old. And I was a pretty good vaulter, and there is no way in hell I would do a round-off back handspring with the vault table right now. It's not happening. Because forget it. If you went now, and if you asked a girl today to go back over the side horse and do it, and she'd be like, no, really, you got to vault. And I had a girl that did a Yuerchenko at 1.5 on that. Eugenia Gold, I did a Yuerchenko double full and train Yuerchenko 2.5, 1985 on the vault table. How many people think your kids could do that now? No, you didn't have a good round off. So there's a lot of fear started early before the kids learn about physics and crafting. One of the biggest advantages of training a Yuerchenko is that there's no real downside. If they never compete the ball, if you get to the point and you realize this kid's a handspring fronter, she can just sky this pipe. The worst bit you've done is made a better round-off back handspring on the floor. A straighter round-off back handspring for beam. So there's no downside with it. Start the round-off drills early, and they'll get that. My experience shows me it takes, I said 12 to 18 months, and I really recently have decided it takes a little bit longer. Another question is, at what point do I start working round-off with a twist coming up? And for me, they need to be able to round off layout Yuerchenko before they do that. And I need to see, am I really getting anything higher in a start value? Or why am I playing with this? As soon as you start adding a twist to pre-flight, you start hurting their power coming on. Anything that you've added to pre-flight is slowing you down. So that's why I think in all the years that I've been coaching, I've had 2 kids do it. And one kid did it as she was coming out of an injury because it just needed an extra 10 to start value. And the other kid just needed it because that was her. We all have that kid that just wants to be different. I coach in the real world. She didn't want to do this. We had to do that. She was happy. I got my monthly tuition out of her. She made it to level 10 nationals. How do you decide who does Yuerchenko as opposed to who does a traditional entry ball? In my gym, everyone trains a Yuerchenko at some point. But the big questions that I have are, can they manage the fear? And are they dedicated? By managing the fear, if you have a kid that box, back tumbling, probably not a good kid for a Yuerchenko. Okay? And you sound like you're like, oh yeah, I can see that. But really, I've seen so many coaches take kids down this road, and you have a kid that won't do a round off back handspring back layout on the floor. I'm like, oh yeah, well what are you working? Yuerchenko. I'm like, probably a bad idea. Right? Dedication. I think there are certain skills that I don't think kids can miss a lot of. I've had kids that did a soup, and they had a nice soup, and they had a nice handspring front, and for whatever reason, towards the end of school, life kind of conspires against them. Whether or not they have a whole bunch of final exams, they've got prom, they've got these other things. So they kind of, for 10 days, 2 weeks, their practices aren't really consistent. They can come in and they can still make a handspring front to that soup and live through it. I necessarily don't see that in a Yuerchenko. The kids that are going to do a Yuerchenko and really do something with it, they need to be consistent in the gym. And then the last one is, are we going to get a higher start value? My prerequisites. You guys that are taking pictures of the slides, these slides are all going to be up on my website at gymmomentum.com. Right? If they're not up already, this is an older lecture that I've done. If they're not up already, I promise they'll be up in like 10 days by the time I get home. And it's a PDF. The videos will not be there. The videos won't be online. That just takes too much. But there'll be a PDF of the slides, so you don't have to feel you need to write down each and every word. For the most part, my feeling with suits and Yuerchenkos, my prerequisites are the same. They need to obviously have a straight round off back handspring. They need to double back someplace, tumble track, trampoline, wherever. Snap down, double back off of mini tramp. That to me is a requirement because I want them to understand how to snap into a flip. Even though it's kind of separated off of mini tramp, I just think that's a good idea to have. They need to be able to round off, double back off the board. I see a lot of coaches that don't have this. They do all these, and then they're too darn lazy to move the ball table, and they don't do this last thing where they do a round off, double back off the board. I'll tell you, if your kid does a slightly crooked hurdle, and she's hitting the end of the board, and maybe only hitting the ball table on one hand, she better be able to round off, double back. So that is my golden rule. Henry, can you give any golden rules for your prerequisites?
My golden rules are your golden rules.
That's why we're roommates. Okay. There are 6 basic parts to any ball, but to the Yuerchenko, okay, you have the run. All right, that's obvious, but this is a thing a lot of coaches forget. They spend a lot of time training all those other parts, and you look at the kid coming down the runway, and like I said the other day, it looks like they have a medical alert bracelet on. There's just arms and legs, and just like coming down like that. Okay? They need to be able to hurdle straight. Not just hurdle, but hurdle straight. They can't have their knee crossing in front of them, any of that stuff. Hurdle straight. You have to have a good round off. You have the back handspring part. You have the flip. And then what's left? Landing. Okay. Work the end of all of your flips. Sometimes you want to work the end first. If kids know what it feels, what the end feels like, if they know how it feels like where it's going to land, whether they're just doing back layouts off of the ball table, whether they're just doing backward rolls off a mat, but if they know what it's like to land, their fear is considerably less. Because they understand, saying, oh, I know how it's like to land. First double back that I did. I was terrified. Right? We're talking double back, but I'm old. So I was terrified because I was afraid I was going to land short. I was going to break both my ankles. I was terrified of the landing. I wasn't afraid of the flip. Nobody gets hurt in the air. You get hurt at that sudden stop at the end. Okay? I went to a competition, and I thought I was having a good warm-up. I just kind of opened early. I came in short. It hurt, but you know what? I didn't break both my ankles. And so I got up, dusted myself off, and went, okay, I can handle that. I no longer had fear of that double back because I knew what a bad one felt like. So the more landings you're able to do in a controlled environment, the better your gymnast is going to feel about the flip in general. Running drills. Nothing really special. We do high knee running, we do butt kicks, gazelle runs. Single leg sprint solves a lot of problems. Running with resistance, whether it's a partner or a band. Run, hurdle, and then run again because you want the hurdle to accelerate. And then we'll do skipping butt kicks, and that's where they skip. And their bottom foot comes up. Pretty good for them. What I like about single leg sprint is I'll do it a variety of different ways. They'll sprint down the runway on one foot, and then it's step hurdle, or they'll have to sprint down on one foot, and then this is their hurdle foot. But you'll do it both ways. So you want to do both your left and your right, but they should do it into something. Don't just have them do their running drills and run down and do nothing out of it. All of our running drills, as they get better, will go to a cartwheel onto the board. Or just, my little kids, when we're doing, my level 4s, 5s, I live in the real world. I have a very busy gym. My level 4s, 5s, we have to warm up our run on part of the floor because another group is still on ball, and I don't want to waste their time. So we'll do our running drills across the floor onto a carpet square, which is great because I can have 6 kids go at the same time, not just one. And now I looked at that, and all of a sudden my rotation switched, and I have the full vault runway, but I still like with my 4s and 5s to do our running drills across the floor because it was more efficient. It's 40 feet. These kids don't run that fast anyway. Drills that I have for the hurdle: run and hurdle over a mat. Run and hurdle over mats to a front handspring. We do front handspring step outs before we do round outs. Okay? Why do I do that? So I heard somebody say straight. Okay? You're going to go straight if you do a hurdle front handspring step out. Okay? If you're hurdling, in most of the kids, they're going to hurdle and their body is going to continue going forwards if they're reaching forward. But when you see them and they're doing a round off, they're going to hurdle and one knee goes this way and their arms come back over the top. We've all seen that. So we train a lot of our running drills, and when we do the hurdle drill, we're doing it to a front handspring step out because it keeps the kids straighter longer. Now we go run, hurdle, over the mat to round off. It should say round off back handspring, so don't try to figure out how they run and hurdle over the mat. It's just the back handspring. And from a longer run, they're just kind of decorating the runway, making it look like vaulting board. And this is still, when I updated, a lot of my videos didn't transfer, they became still photos. So what she's just doing is going run, hurdle, run again. So I'm sorry that didn't work out. This is one of my favorite conditioning stations that we do an awful lot of. Step up kicks. These kids are really sloppy. Now I'll videotape one kid that does a little better job. The kid that I videotaped in the next slide doesn't have the best shoulder flexibility, but lately we've progressed from going step up kick to step up kick needle scale. So they'll do 5 step up kicks, 5 step up kick needle scale, switch legs. 5 step up kicks, 5 step up kick needle scales. Now I've taken that and gone one step further, where now we're doing the step up kick on a wedge mat. So they're stepping up to the top of the wedge mat. And they'll go step up kick, step up kick, step up kick, needle step, scale, step up kick, front handspring. So they're working that. It's the repetition that's going to help you. A kid doesn't have time to think. It's a runway, it's not a think way. When they step on, they have to go. So it's all about you creating that muscle memory for them to be, when they step on, that they can go. So it's repetition of a good thing. I always tell the kids, you will get good at what you practice. If you practice crap, you're really good at crap. So practice it good. Drills that we do for a straight round off. Step up kicks with bands. They'll put one around their arms, and they'll put a looser one around each ankle. So when they step up kick, it's resistance against them. Step up kick to front handspring, I just talked about that. Step up kick to round off. Step up kick to round off back handspring, all those kind of start the same. Front and side aerials. Did I do a tumbling lecture here? I've been doing something, no, that was the other day in Las Vegas. When they took the side aerial out of the compulsory routines, out of that level 6 routine, now it's level 5, but when they took it out of that routine, we created a generation of athletes that don't know how to drive their leg over the top and push through their plant leg. We have an entire generation. How many, do you realize there were less double backs at national team camp off of beam this year than there was a decade ago? Okay. I mean, there are less. What, haven't we gotten better and stronger? But what's happened is because these kids have never been trained on a side aerial, they don't understand how to push off this plant leg and drive this back leg straight over the top. If they can't side aerial, they don't understand it. So put side aerials back in your program. You can take any kid on the sprint floors we have these days, and they can learn how to flip. Okay, they can make that front flip. Every little kid wants to come. They can do that front tuck that's in that routine. But side aerial actually takes technique. So front and side aerials. Side aerial to back handspring. So now you're adding that same leg drive. They're stepping in and going to a back handspring. I tend to decorate my floor as often as I can. As soon as they can side aerial, I'll throw a sting mat or something so they have a target. Now I want you to side aerial, step in so you're standing on that target to back handspring. Great. So they're starting to understand where things are. And then I'll throw another sting mat out there so they'll land on a carpet square, back handspring to a sting mat. So they see that it becomes very visual, very much the same. From a knee, far arm cartwheel. I've seen a lot of times, and I'll talk about the round off in a second, okay? But a lot of times kids in their round off, their second hand comes down and smacks the floor, but really doesn't do anything. They don't get that push off their second hand. So I eliminate the first hand. So they have no choice. So we'll do a cartwheel from a knee, but they can't touch their first hand. They're only pushing with their second hand. From a lunge, far arm cartwheel, back handspring. Then we'll do far arm round off. Far arm round off, back handspring to 8-inch mat, carpet squares, whatever. We're just decorating. And then round off up to an 8-inch mat. Just a simple round off. Now we're talking, these are your developmental kids. These are your level 4s, 5s. You know, that they're learning all these drills. This is a word on the round off that you're probably going to use for a Yuerchenko. So it's a little bit different than your round off on floor. And I learned this from a power tumbler. I'll tell you the story behind it. I was speaking at the Canadian national conference, kind of, and they had French power tumbling national team coach there, and I was there. And we both taught round offs differently. I taught essentially the same round off for everything. So it's very much a cartwheel step in. Hands were pretty much in a straight line, and you stepped in. I said, that's the same round off we're going to use on floor. You'll use it on beam. And I want to see their hands in pretty much a straight line as they went to vault. And he teaches a different round off, depending on what they're doing out of it. Because he's got guys that go like, they'll do round off, double layout, and then tumble out of it, stuff like that. So they said, Tony, and this guy's name was Jean-Marc, they said, you two both have been very successful, but you teach roundoffs differently. So we want you to go up there and present and have a little controversy for the audience. So he went first, and he said, well, if you're going to snap really fast, which you need to for a round-off double layup, you really want to be able to snap and push off both hands equally and stand this up. And so this kind of round-off is going to be more of a half-on. And I went, holy shit, he's right. And just changed, because if you think about it, what's a layup Yuerchenko? It's a round-off double layup. It's all about transferring the speed of your run, snapping efficiently onto the board, and getting your body to turn over like a double layup. And so since then, I just kind of went back at the gym, and I looked at my best vaulters, my fastest runners, the kids that could really snap. A couple of Yuerchenko at 1.5, so I was watching them, and all of them turned more. All of them. And so instead of me yelling at them to try to straighten it out, I just kind of let it become. And all of these kids ended up, that round-off tended to be a little bit more half-on than anything. I don't tell kids to do their round-off as more of a half-on. I feel that the faster their run is, the harder they snap, it becomes that half-on. So what I did was I just stopped correcting it because I realized that I was wrong. So it's never too late to fix things. So don't feel bad. Why? I'm sorry, it's that like the wireless thing popped up to me. Like, do you want to join Hilton Honors? I'm gonna give you my credit card. A strengthening drill that we do a lot of is just single leg rollback jumps. See the kid in the background cheating? Thank me. That's why I'm actually videotaping these front too. Set to 10. That's their plant leg, that's their push leg. This kind of exercise that is a little bit dynamic, it's going to help with the strength for their run. It certainly helps the speed in their hurdle. This next drill, I have to kind of preface it because it starts like right away. It's a drill using, they're going to step, drop to a knee, and do a cartwheel step in. Right? And then they'll step, drop to a knee, and do a round up. We're looking at two things. That as they step forward, things are kind of shuffling forward. Right? I don't want high. I don't want ever a high hurdle. So they're doing this just from, I call it, they kind of shuffle into it. And they'll do it in the beginning. I'm adding a conditioning station where they're going like needle scale into it. So that's the first part. I like where they stop and start with their hands. So kind of shuffle into it. Sorry for my finger crossing. And that's just got to be. That's kind of a rod for whatever. Notice where they're stopping their arms in their round off. They're both going in and out of it. I like them stopping their round off kind of low. So that's the part where they go skip, 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 into it. Did everybody get that? Do you want me to run it again? All right, run that one more time. What I like about them stopping their arms low in their hurdle is it continues as they're doing this, their hurdle will continue moving forwards. If kids swing their arms up all the way up, like I covered the other day, now they're actually slowing their hurdle down. This is a break. They want to throw themselves forwards. I've done a big red out of it. It makes me laugh. And then this next one is where they'll go like step, skip. That's just a hurdle. I know we coach in little white lies, and that when I tell kids I want their hands to stop at their chin, what I'm really saying is I don't want your arms to swing all the way up. Because when they swing their arms all the way up, it stops them. And I essentially say the same thing when they land on the board in their back handspring. We know ideally that when they land on the board, we want a straight line. Yes? But what I was getting is when they were landing on the board and they were thinking so hard about getting their body on a straight line, their hands were actually going past and they were buffed. So what you see them doing is I'm asking them to stop their hands a little bit lower, because reality is when they go fast, it lines up. So that's when I say coaching by little white lies. I'm not necessarily, what we want to get isn't possible. No drill is perfect. You just have to take small parts out of it and put it together. What we have here, this is a bungee, and her foot's just up on a bungee, and so she's snapping her legs together on the bungee. This is another one of those things that didn't turn into a video. Okay? So she's pulling her legs together, That's just to show up for the roundup.
So is the bottom leg coming up?
No, the bottom leg stays flat, and the top leg pulls down into it. I have that. That's like almost I have that station set up in like 4 different places because we use it in so many different places. Whether they're stepping in for a toe handstand, it's just a very common action that we have. And I like them to lie flat because I want her shoulders to push open. She was especially tight in her shoulders. The next video, I know it's out of line. It's not in the right place, but it's a really cool video. It should be further on in this. So what we have is this is a bungee belt, right? It's just there's about probably 9 feet of shock cord on each side, and it just went to the marine supply store, and I bought a great big cleat and attached that to the wall. So I pull it where it's tight, and then I just tie it off, so I don't have to hang on to it. So it's pulling her up as she goes. So she's learning how to block. This is the first day that this kid was ever in this. Never done this before. I was like, Ayla, I need this video. I'm here to do this. Right? And I said, now try to snap through. I said, okay, try to snap through. She can't tuck in it. So it has to be let. If she tucks, her body will stop. So she's getting a lot of air sense. And then I said, all right, try it alone. It's not pretty, but she's 7 years old. I have a lot of time to get that straight and hear somebody that understands at 7 years old how to push off my hands and get my body to do a 1.5 lift. I have a lot, I can do this. It's just a round off that handspring drill. The hands are going on the air ramp, so she's learning how to block with her hands. I'll show that again. I know it's a really lousy quality. Just a rebound through her shoulder drill. Okay. Back handspring drills. Handstand snap up, back handspring off mini tramp. And the back handspring off the mini tramp goes over a block or over a ball table trainer. Rebound jumps on the board to a back handspring. Kids have to understand the first back handspring they learn on the floor is just all jumping. Then they start learning a round off back handspring where it starts to be a rebound. But rebounding off the board is a lot different than rebounding off the floor. So they have to understand how to bounce back handspring. Back handspring rebound on tumble track for arm push. So the rebound is happening with their arms, not their legs. Right? So they try to hop twice with their arms. Stand in front of a wall and reach back. And we do this both ways. We want the kids to reach back and stay in good posture. Right? We don't want them to let their knees buckle. So I just have them stand in front of the wall, about 8 inches, 10 inches away, and just feel their body reach back and stay in balance. That's all. Pretty simple. Back handspring up the wedge mat to handstand. One of the bigger problems in a Yuerchenko is that as kids snap their back handspring, their feet snap all the way through. So by the time they contact the table, their feet are already on the way down. So kids need to understand how to back handspring and kind of stop it in handstand. On pommel horse, they're going to do reach backs. I have this drill on parallel bars. Right? So I have a video of that, so you can see that. Okay. This is, again, one of the videos that magically turned into a photo. So she's doing a back handspring to handstand up the wedge mat. I've given her washcloth. She's holding one between her knees and one between each shoulder and her ears in order that her arm, well, she had a problem that her legs kept coming apart. But I want her ears, I want her head and ears to, her arms and her head to work in line and not grow. Okay. This is another one of those magic videos. This just bouncing to back handspring. And now we're just doing, I think it's just this round up, rebound. Yeah. Round up, rebound up. This is a longer video. It was really just about the round up, rebound, but I'll just let it play. Obviously, the rest of that's more difficult. Okay. I should cut that video down. I did not.
Little girl.
What?
The little girl in the front of the video. That little girl right
Is
there.
she just watching the whole time?
No, she's watching her roll.
You see that Fun with Fitness one where the kid, like, he's standing there on video
Yeah.
picking his nose?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I just showed this video to like half the country. You know, like, picking your nose. Another magic video, and I don't know why he did this. She was doing back handsprings on the tumble track up the 8-inch mat. It was pretty simple. Whoops. Too far. So this is like the first step of what you did, you know, to just step off that handspring. Right, so that was like the video of her in the bungee belt. So this is like the first thing we do. And then they go in bungee belt. It's like 5 minutes each. I think the bungee belt was only about $120. You know, everything else is pretty good. The pulleys and stuff I just bought from a fishing supply store. I live on the ocean, so I'm not talking like little ones. I mean, these are like big pulling lobster trap kind of ones. Really good drill for back handspring rebounds, and this is, she's on top of a mat on top of 2 vaulting boards. So it's back handspring, she's pushing through her shoulders. You remember this from the other day? You'll watch the girl cheat on handstand push-ups in the background. This is back handspring into the wall rebound. Don't do that with your little kids. This is a good drill. We all have a problem that the kids don't stop their feet. They snap too soon. So by having them do this back handspring up, you can see their hands start to rebound up before they snap through. Stop this for a moment. If you were here the other day, this is the same slide. So this is a vault table trainer. She's standing on top of a wedge mat that's folded, and then we have our fat mat back here. I try to keep things visually as similar as we can from one to the next. So when we add the next drill, it's not a huge change. That next drill, oh, okay, I'm just now doing a round off in front of that. We just start, back handspring, her hands go on the table trainer, she falls to her back. We're getting that layout position. Now, round up, back handspring, fall to her back. It's very simple. I mean, it takes a while to get to, obviously. Any questions so far? Yes?
Play that real quick.
Sure. I like her hands to be further apart. I was going to show this again. Her hands her fingers are almost touching. And, you know, these damn bees. So, but she goes from around off. Still, I know that I was constantly correcting Lindsay, put your hands wider, put your hands wider. She was always in a little bit too close. When your hands are in that close, what you end up getting is a push instead of a block. So hands should be, I would tell them, a little bit more than shoulder width with most of the kids. Just a tiny bit here. So, any questions so far? No? Good. All right. So the drills that we do to putting things together. So this kind of shows, this just describes what the last video was. With the wedge mat and fat mat, go round up back handspring up the hip. Right? And then they'll snap through to their back. Then we start adding things to it. So when they have to run and hurdle, they'll have to hurdle over a mat. Then I'll take our rainbow mats and I'll put those on the side to make sure they go straight in their round up. Then we'll go from vault steps over on the vault runway, round up to an 8-inch mat, okay, and rebound onto a mat in front of the table. So I'm just kind of protecting the table. But again, I'm trying to keep things visually the same. From vault steps, round up onto the board and rebound up to mats. With TheraBand attached to the bar, we showed that where you pull your leg down. Yeah, I think so. Handstand snap up back handspring here, off the mini tram. See, it's not cheating on conditioning in the background. So what I like is that she has to snap up over that block, and then she falls flat to her back. We always follow through to landing flat on our back. This is on a rod floor. So just round up in front, just going over a block. I like the block. This block is about 50% bigger than the vault table, so I wanted it to be big. I wanted big margin for error. These kids had never gone over a vault table, so we were just playing. Drill this now. Missing thing. Stop this already. Drills that we do for flipping. Round up back handspring over mat to flip. I have to explain this. I don't have this on video. So you put your trapezoid out on the floor. Okay? They round off in front of it. Their hands go on the mat in the back handspring. Their feet then land on the floor, and then they do a flip. So still just a round off back handspring back layout. Nothing different. Only during this, we've given them a mat to put their hands on. A target, something a little higher, a little harder. So round off onto the floor, their hands go up on the mat in the back handspring, feet go back onto the floor, and then we do back layout. Does everybody understand that? Sorry, I don't have a video of that. My progression, okay, that with everything, and I keep it the same, okay, and I should interject that I've since started adding an open tuck. So we'll do tight, open tuck, layout, half left, full layout, 1.5. That is my flipping progression. Our first flip, I like the kids to do a pike because I feel that their body is going to follow their feet. I had a big problem when we just did tucks that they never got their legs straight. That their legs, if they hit the board, as they came up in their back handspring, their knees stayed bent, they pushed, and they never really got an efficient snap because their legs were always bent. So by going round up back handspring, back pike, or with all their flips being a pike first, they snapped with straight legs, their body followed their toes. Everybody understand why I do that? So, pike, open, tuck, layup, layup half, layup full, layup 1.5. That. So when they're doing this station here on the floor, that's the station they do. You do a pike, you do an open tuck, then you can do a layup and a layup half, and that just stays the same. Drills up to the fat mat, higher and higher and higher, you know, just your typical timers that we've all done. You can also do back handspring rebounds, hands to hands, just like what we talked about. So behind the fat mat, let's say this is the fat mat and the table's done, they're going to go round up back handspring their hands, block off the ball table, and then try to block and land up on the fat mat. So it's forcing them to keep their feet behind and get a good rebound up. Drills with mat sideways behind the table. I like that. So now instead of the mat being the long way, you put it the short way, and they land up on it and then can flip into the pit off of it. That's similar. You can see a lot of the same faces, similar to the drill that we showed the other day. Tumble track. Round off, whip to folded wedge, whip into the pit. Right? Or back layup into the pit. So I take our wedge mat and I put it, fold it up on the edge of the pit. So we'll go round off, whip up, and then go into the pit. So that's a drill for round off double layup. If you have a kid that can go round off double layup full out, you have a kid that can Yuerchenko full. So even, we're talking, this is your developmental kids. So if they're learning how to do that now, a year from now, 2 years from now, when it's time, they're going to be ready. Wedge mat, round off that handspring up the hill, and when they get to the top, they're going to snap through to their back. A lot of cruises, we do a lot of trampoline. Okay, cruises, Cody's on trampoline. Stack mat behind the table. I pull that 8-inch mat, I put the vaulting table down, okay, so it's down lower, and I pull an 8-inch mat over. So now it's really big, really soft, and the kids aren't afraid to hit it. Do you guys see the new mat from Retrosi? That looks like, I'm from New England, so that's wicked cool. All right, I got it on that one. Okay, I love that thing. It's brilliant. You know, it has a good shape to it. It's visually the same. Christ, if your kid misses that, she shouldn't even be doing gymnastics. I mean, 5 feet wide. Timer to wedge mat higher than the table, and this is with the fat end of the wedge mat closest to the table. So they have to snap through. So now they're going uphill and have to rotate through. So they finish up in candlestick. Timer to wedge mat higher than the table. Okay, half turn to Swedish fall. Guys, remember Swedish fall? So now they're actually learning how to twist. What I've done is now that when they land on their back, up on the mat, if you're a lefty, you're only allowed to get off the mat on one side. If you're a righty, you're only allowed to get off the mat on the other side. So from the very time they're little, they always know what way that they twist. Okay, you're a lefty, you roll up this side. You're a righty, you roll off the mat on the other side. So here's where this is. We saw this before. Way cool. Okay, trampoline stuff. I have 2 balls on timer. This one comes up really quick. I like how quick she gets up off the table. Drills that we do for body position. I feel the first part of, stop this, right? The first part of any good backflip has a little bit of a gainer action to it. If you think of a good double layup, when they contact the floor here, the first part actually pulls forward a little bit. Right? It'll move forward. So we'll do a lot of gainers. What I want the girls to do here is they're just falling flat to their back, holding themselves open, and when they land, I don't want their body to move too much. I made the mistake of doing this on a brand new 8-inch mat. They didn't appreciate that. So they just fall, and what I like her arms to do is that her arms stay pointing to the same position in the air. So her hands point to one place, so as her body falls, her hands give the appearance of closing. This is, I'm going to stop this, sorry for This is a problem. Kids think that they block and pull their hands down because they see their hands down in the air. But really what happens is their arms stay in one place and the body rotates up to their hands. So even on a Yuerchenko where they're flipping off their hands, they're going to block up and get to here. And then the arms stop there. And the body comes to it. So I use this for the kids to understand how that works. No, go back. Sorry, there we go. So hers aren't so good. The next kid, she does a better job at it. See my very pregnant coach in the background. Do I get your sympathy to tell you that I have 5 pregnant women working for me all at the same time? I always go home at night and cry. Right, so we're doing gainers, it's the same thing. Their body's just a quarter gainer. Again, these are some pretty little kids, they're just learning how. And here's our next step. If I want them to do the same thing, fall and just flip. Okay? Their hands stay in one spot, they fall. This isn't a hard spot for me, or it shouldn't be a hard spot for anybody. I really don't do anything. I'm pretty lazy that way. The kids like this drill. Everybody get that? Yes? Right. Just call them TikToks again, just as a best handspring control. These are level 5s. So playing with it. I want their hands to stay right in the box. Try to do as many as they can in a row. See, drop back handspring, control the back handspring. That was pretty ugly. Our landing drills. We just do forward and backward rolls off blocks. Take the trapezoid, whatever you can. They do a forward roll, land. They'll do a backward roll, land. How many times have your level 4s done a forward roll or a backward roll off a block to land before you had them try a back flip or a front flip on the floor? Okay? Good. Right? The rest of you, add it in. Okay? This is not a station you have to spot, but they're working the end of their flip. They're figuring out how to land. Did everybody get all of our land drills? Forward roll, backward roll, half. Okay. Conditioning drills. Hollow and tight arch candlestick. So when they pull up the candlestick, they pull up in a hollow. They pull up to a tight arch. They have to understand both of those shapes. Handstand shoulder shrugs. Handstand bouncing on a board or tumble track. Superman, so they round up onto the board, just called Superman, where I can go up and I catch them. Okay? And they're tight, and then I throw them in through the like that. Our tramp drills, cruises, pull through to the back. I'm not a trampolinist, and I realized after that I'm actually using this wrong. They do back layout to their stomach, so a quarter flip, okay? And then they stand up and pull through to their back. And then they'll do the same thing with a quarter twist, quarter, so that when they'll land on their stomach, pull through to their back. The next one, they land on their stomach, they stand up, quarter turn, and then they jump, quarter turn to their stomach. And that just follows that. You know what a Cody is? Okay? It's a back flip from your stomach. So essentially, they're going to go. I don't have an oxy bed or anything. It's just the black nylon bed. So they'll go back that to their stomach, and they'll go 1 3/4 flip from their stomach. Right? If they can do that, I don't worry about them flipping to Yuerchenko. They know how to land. But that's one of the things that I make them do. Okay? So that's the one with a quarter where her feet don't touch.
Can you show us again, please?
This is like about halfway down the list. So she has her grips on because I also use this drill as a ganger. Tumble track drills. Lots of double backs. lots and lots and lots of double backs, lots of double fronts, open tucks, pikes, layouts, and we work twisting out. Okay? When you're twisting anywhere, the more comfortable an athlete gets with their twist, the sooner it goes. The more comfortable they get, the sooner they will twist. So if you teach exclusively a full in, right, or if you're teaching an early twist with just a layout full, there's only one place that twist can get sooner, and that's in the back handspring or in the round off. But if you start at the end, okay, you have a lot more space. So work twisting out. It's not a video. That's a picture. That was one of our best practical jokes I've ever played. I had some of my gyms go up back. I'm going to take your picture. And it was kind of mean of me, but I laughed. The next picture is better, but I didn't put that on. There's just some pictures of all. Does anybody have any questions on anything? So that is the developmental plan that I use. I teach very, very, very few suits in my gym. I almost all go towards Yuerchenko's. I just think that's where kids are going to go. Yes, ma'am. I just couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. Oh, absolutely. This is getting the kids to their first flip. All right. We only vault. I don't have vault into loose foam. My tumble track goes into loose foam. It's one of those things. When I built my pit, when I built my gym, I had a choice. So the tumble track goes into loose foam. The vault goes into resi. Right? We vault into the resi 1 day a week. Everything else is uphill. Right? As soon as they can, what's the second biggest deduction on vault for like a level 8 that's doing a pike Suk or pike Yuerchenko? Lack of opening. They don't open at the end. It's because kids have this visual thing, and they're just going to go all the way to the end until their feet hit, and then they stand up. So throw 2 extra 8-inch mats there. So now in training, they're practicing going up 16 inches higher than what they normally do. And then on the day, you say, look, do it the same. And when you feel your feet when you feel your body get to that point, open up. Gina, I can't remember her last name, starts with P. She's in technique. She shared with me that she's supposed to share with me this article that talks about that it takes 1,000 repetitions for muscle memory to really for you to own that. So you can't just do it twice and expect the kid, oh, how come you don't know how to do it? You have to be patient. But vaulting uphill, if you want a bigger vault, you have to vault uphill. Going on to what would be Yuerchenko vaulting part 2 that I'm not doing here, my progression is once you can flip, we start adding up. When you can do a layout to 2 extra 8-inch mats, then we start working twisting. If you can't do a layout to 2 extra 8-inch mats, we don't do it. It motivates the kids to do that good back handspring into it and come up. It puts the emphasis on where it needs to be. Do I know in my heart some of these kids could do it down here? Yeah, but I have to hold that carrot. I have to keep that out in front of them. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Hand position on the table.
Hand position is as close to straight as you can get. I think with the shape of the table, it's making kids go a little bit out. Okay. But I think it's just because of the way the table is shaped. I do make the kids, if you're going to work Yuerchenko's, you must wear wrist supports in my gym. Okay? That's just my rule. If you're going to work Yuerchenko's, you have wrist supports. You may only use them for half your vault because you're level 4, and when it's time for us to do that, I just think the vaulting runway is awful hard for a kid with developing wrists, with open growth plates, to run 70 feet and put their hands down. So just to protect them. Somebody over here had a question? Yes?
You were talking about round up, how there's you were doing like half on and then round up.
Yes.
We were doing double layers out of that. So as you're progressing and you're tumbling on the floor, do you allow them to do that?
No, because I don't think you could ever get as fast. Remember, these tumblers that were doing it, they were doing like a 20-meter run, before they would ever do this round off. So I just don't think it's possible anybody to generate the speed that they needed. I'm not saying it's impossible.
I have a bad habit myself of doing almost a half on rather than reaching one, two, and
Yeah.
so
I mean, you could be extra fast. I'm not saying it's wrong. You know, I'm just saying like that half on, it really only occurs when somebody's really getting that big fast run. And you can picture those tumblers that they're running, 20 meters before they do their round off. And that's really where that half on has to occur. The only place we're going to see that is at vaulting. Any other questions? When they block from the table and come up? It should be blocked. They're going to block and it's going to kind of stay in here. Okay, I don't want them to block and reach. They're going to block and their whole body just kind of pulls this way. Did that answer your question, more or less? Okay. Any other questions?
So when you do layout, you throw your arms up here or you start from there?
On vault, from the vault?
Yeah, just to lay out how you teach layout.
If I'm just teaching a lad on trampoline or on floor, the arms are going to be here.
Yeah.
But for vaulting, because you're starting upside down, it's your feet that are here, and your body comes through because you're upside down. Okay. So even I'll get you in 1 second. So when we're on trampoline, when we're bouncing, I don't let the kids do arm circles when they bounce because they end up looking like chickens and stuff with their arms. Reality is, I want them to take off here because that's how they have to take off on floor. Right. This is floor. This is everything else. I know it's not perfect trampoline technique, but it's right. But they're faster and they do this. My gymnasts aren't that fast. Reality is, if I had them swing their arms into a layout, they're doing this. So I just want them to take off this way. That's really cool. I looked down. I didn't know what I had on me. Yes, you had a question.
also too when you're doing
Wedges, anything I can get my hands on that the preschoolers aren't using. Wedges, mailboxes, sheet of plywood, You know what? I've used pool noodles. Pool noodles are really cool, especially if you have a kid that's doing this arm pull down. We talked about that we want them to come up and stay open and bring their body. You have the kids that pull themselves down. I'll put a pool noodle in there, and I'll be able to almost spot and keep their arms away. Just because it's not pushing, the thing's squishy, but it's just enough for them to feel this action. So you just kind of put it behind, and as they snap over, you just kind of go like this. Don't use a stick. Pool noodle. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. I have the rectangular hand mat, and it stays the long way all the time. And I've never moved it because that just kind of covers everybody. If I had somebody a little bit taller, I might move it back. So it's almost a moot point. The front of the board is at about 1/8, okay? And then the hand mat, the longer rectangular one, goes right behind it that way. That's just how it's. I'm lazy. I don't have to measure. It just drops in there.
Are your kids tall?
No. It makes them stretch, and it's soft. Like there's nobody that nobody's stepping on it. I mean, it still is only 3 feet. It's not. It's when you do it from a full run, okay, you'll be surprised. Even your littlest kid is going to be able to clear it, right? But it's just there. I wanted to thank everybody. This is my first time speaking down here at Region 8, and you guys kicked, man. Everybody had great questions, great energy. The 5 lectures that I did yesterday, you kept me through till the end. I'm flying out tonight, but I hope you guys have me back. So thank you very much.